Welcome to the KMS Rundown. I am Batman filling in for Red from Maine. Some of you might be asking, where's Red? Where is he? Red had a personal matter to attend to. So I'm filling in with VD and Ziggy. I can't.
That was the bit that your voice was tired from.
Yeah, that's Batman from the Christian Bale Batman.
Because you did send us a pretty alarming DM earlier that said, "I've been practicing this thing for the rundown, and now my throat hurts." But that actually does explain it, thankfully.
It's inspired. I love the scene in the third one where he's kicking the shit out of Bane and he wants the trigger to the nuke, and he's just, where is it? Who has it?
You're talking to two non-movie guys, but I do know that reference.
Are you kidding me?
I'm a Rabbit fan. I don't know anything about movies.
Oh, I never know with you, VD, how much of it is just a shtick that you want to be like Steve. So you're really not a movie guy.
I'm a music guy over movies. I've seen some classics, but like that movie joke, I'm sure we'll get into, where Kirk was basically trolling Steve. That went way over my head until this afternoon. So,
I perked up at that with. They sounded like odd names, and then I heard Luke Abrasi, and I said, wait. So I thought maybe he was just getting their Twitter handles. Luke Abrasi, VD, and Ziggy. Since you guys, there's a movie called The Godfather. It's fairly well regarded. And Luke Abrasi is a big lug who in the opening scene is waiting for the Godfather because the Godfather, it's the day of his daughter's wedding, and he has to grant people favors. And then later, Luke Abrasi gets choked out from behind, and they stab his hand. His hand into the bar, which VD, I know you're a Mayo fan. You told me you were going to out Mayo me in Mayo trivia.
Yeah.
I've alluded to that before. I suggested that Blind Mike do that, the stab the hand to Dave Portnoy when he went to kiss his feet in New York.
How could I forget?
I told him to Luca Brasi him.
How could I forget?
So, all right. I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm going to do my best to stick to your format. I'll do my best to be better than Red, which won't take a lot of effort. No. So the first topic we wanted to get into this week was the VFW seemed to be the dominating story of the week in the KMS world. They started off pulling the names for the raffles, which had some controversy attached to it. So VD, what were your thoughts on the raffle drawing, and why did Steve choose to fuck it up so badly?
Well, I'll start off by saying happy Halloween to all the rundown heads out there, and it's been a stressful day for me.
Are we gonna wish Kirk happy birthday as well?
Oh, I forgot that was today as well. Yeah, happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Kirk.
He's a grown man.
I'm not a birthday guy. I don't really believe in birthdays. I'll say a quick happy birthday, but for me, birthdays aren't my thing. Getting back to the VFW, it was a stressful week as a Rabba fan. There's a lot of, nothing can ever go smoothly, but I think that people forget that, Woodstock didn't go very smoothly, but it turned out to be a great thing. A little bit of adversity is never going to hold this show back. I think Steve handled it great. Kirk handled it great. There's so many aspects of this VFW thing. People are mad at Steve because, maybe he thought someone got pulled twice when they didn't end up being a big deal. People are mad at Steve because the show's been moved outside. The general consensus I get on Twitter is people are like, oh, it's probably better outside anyway. And, Kirk didn't seem to mind the fact that it's moved outside. It seems safer and better for everyone. I think the most important thing is just making sure the show happens so that money can get to the VFW, because the last thing you would want is the show to get canceled over, some libs complaining about this, coronavirus, which may or may not be real. I'm still not convinced either way. But yeah, I think Steve handled it great. Ziggy, you're a Steve hater. I've been getting chirped by you all week for the criticisms, but not as much as normal. You seem to have maybe a tolerant ear for the whole situation.
Yeah, well, first off, if coronavirus is not real, then why was Mayo in his car so long at Saco? That's the real question.
Forget.
I was still in your car, Mayo?
Skirt of Matt.
First off, on the live drawing, I think everyone kind of expected somewhat of a Mickey Mouse operation when Steve's running it, which is, yes, it was pretty much drama free, but it was Mickey Mouse and the tiniest little pieces of paper. And Mayo, I think you said it was a Crown Royale bag. I think it was like a sunglasses case, velvet bag that Kirk was digging into to get the names out of.
Yeah, I didn't literally think it was a Crown.
Okay.
Is it Royale? Is that what you just said?
I don't know.
I think it's Crown.
It sounded
Royal,
wrong
right?
when I said it, so I just went with it. I'm a little out of my element, okay? I've asked myself many times, say, what am I doing with my life?
That was the only brand of I could think of to describe that bag. But
Okay.
I'm with you in terms of Mickey Mouse.
Either way, I mean, there's probably better ways that it could have been done. Steve probably could have put some ID numbers on those numbers just to make sure that he wasn't reading the wrong name or getting the wrong name. And it was kind of funny when Steve thought that there was a duplicate name and Kirk said, "Are you sure?" And then Steve was like, "Well, Tim and Canton just tweeted it," even though Tim was just was transcribing what Steve said on the live broadcast. So you kind of expect that kind of stuff. I don't think there was any shenanigans going on. I did like the music that they played. That was funny. Especially, I noted that the first day they did it, I think so Sunday night, Kirk asked for music. And it was like within 3 seconds, Steve had Sandstorm playing. So I can only assume that that's his Google Chrome like homepage where I'm imagining as soon as the show drops, Kirk leaves, he puts that on, he listens to Sandstorm while he does his editing of the show.
Is that supposed to be a criticism that Big Steve rocks out to Sandstorm?
It was just an observation that how quickly he had that, because he's usually pretty slow with getting sound. So that was probably the quickest he's ever gotten sound before.
No, but Mayo, you're known as a live event critic, maybe correctly or incorrectly. What you listed out a whole list of things that you thought may go wrong. You tried to tip off the show. Seemed like you had good intentions. You want everything to go smoothly. Now that we're here, before the show, after the drawing, do you have any criticisms?
No, well, I do agree with Ziggy that it was a little bit Mickey Mouse, but then, it did give us drama, so maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. Was there even drama? What was the drama? That was actually
the raffle.
I thought there could have been more drama over it, or more content over it, if the next day Kirk had really grilled Steve about, Steve, walk me through this. Like, exactly why did you think someone got pulled twice when they clearly didn't? Because I was curious about that, and I thought it could have been a good uncomfortable segment. But Kirk didn't go down that path. But but I would think maybe Kirk would say part of the fun of it is not having it go perfectly and having Steve fuck up and giving people something to get hot and bothered about.
Yeah. It's not like people, meaning the Andy Mayos of the world.
I'm not hot and bothered. I'm not hot and bothered at all. I tried to give them a proactive list, like VD said, of things to consider. And then if they don't consider those things, then I have it on record and I can say, told you so, just to myself, and maybe some people in the DMs.
And your 73 followers, which by the way,
I 73.
I think so. Yeah. Last I checked, I think
it would 4 people fucked up.
It would be good if you gave the listeners the opportunity to let them know where they can find you on Twitter, because I know you had a large account, and then for whatever reason you deleted it. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people probably thought you were lost in a tragic mole surgery removal process. But we are here. You got 73 followers, so congrats on that. So I don't know, where can the people follow you on Twitter?
How do you think I lost 15 pounds?
You look good, by the way.
Getting the one mole removed.
Yeah, you look good. I think your last appearance on camera, people were a little critical, maybe calling you heavy set, maybe some not so nice names, but you're looking good.
I still maintain. So I'm not saying that I wasn't fat. I'm saying I don't think I was as fat as I looked in that video, and I looked so ridiculously fat in that video, and I don't think it was accurate. But I definitely was fat at that time. But I don't know if it was the angle, or I think I told you guys maybe around that time I had eaten chili for like 5 meals that week. So I think maybe it was bloating. But
well, like Blind Mike says, you can lose 40 pounds in a month. It's easy.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah,
Life Loser Challenge season 2 with Andy Mayo.
No problem.
If people want to find me on Twitter, they'll find me. I'm not going to tell them.
All right, perfect.
Ooh,
I don't want them.
Very mysterious from Bat Mayo.
So back to the VFW, Mayo, I think it was 97% is the number Chad Finn once claimed that Kirk and Callahan, like 97% fake or fabricated. Was that the number? And then that obviously got...
I think that was the number.
Yeah. So I saw some tweets today of people saying the going outside was fabricated drama. I mean, I don't think any of us agree with that. That's pretty pretty dumb. But do we have thoughts on who the rat could be?
Oh, I got thoughts. I got lots of thoughts.
I got thoughts that, there is an overlap with my enemy list on my accusations, but I'm thinking it's probably 95% it was LK and maybe 5% it was Menners. Those are my two.
What's the case for LK? I got a case for LK too, but I want to hear yours.
He's disgruntled because the Wilbur show hasn't happened. That was supposed to be his big moment.
Yeah, he paid a lot of money for that.
I know he's been complaining about in Discord, Kirk doesn't even respond to my DMs anymore. Like, I'm supposed to have my moment. And he's just kind of mentally unraveling right now on Twitter. And I think it has to do with the Wilbur show. Also, he's an immigrant, so why not?
Is he a dreamer or an illegal alien?
He's a dreamer. Sorry, not an immigrant. He's a dreamer. Yeah.
I have no comment on that part. my rationale. So I had a question: is it a rat or is it rats? Because I've got, I think LK has a partner in crime named Mr. Ned Snark, the infamous Swampland 7. Now, and my rationale behind that is that I can only assume each of them spent a ridiculous amount of money on raffle tickets, and as far as we know, I don't think either of them won. So that's point A. You could say that would disgruntle them, but I think they were already gruntled before that. When who's been shitting on the YouTube a lot lately? Kirk Minahan. Who worships Kirk Minahan? LK and Ned Snark. Who's on the YouTube more than anybody else? More than John from Scranton. LK and Ned Snark. Yep. I think it's been hurting their feelings, and I think that they've had enough.
This is a talking point from the last time you were relevant in the world, which is probably May. LK's I think only on one show now. He used to be on a lot of shows. But you gotta update you have to update your analogy.
I do feel like Ned is on 83 shows on the YouTube.
Yeah, we love Ned here.
Ned's very active.
Terrible.
I'll tell you why you're wrong is because Ned is a deadhead. He's a guy about the vibe. He's about the energy. So for him to cancel a live show, like, that's sacrilegious. He would never do anything like that. LK, most likely. Also, people forget Ned Snark, one of the elite and few guests to go on Nickel's worth of free advice. So I'm surprised to see you turn on him like this. I was expecting an apology. I was expecting an apology to Ned.
No, perhaps I'm wrong. That's a different take, the deadhead take. My take on Ned was he's obviously some would call him a handsome man. And pretty people get things handed to him their whole lives. So I figured he's the kind of guy who's used to getting what he wants. And when he didn't get a raffle ticket, maybe he saw red. Maybe he blacked out and did something crazy.
Do you have any input on the fact that it might be Menners?
I don't think Menners would do that. No.
I
think it was I think it's going to be somebody's meme who saw the selectman in this grocery store and said, I heard there's a rock show at the VFW and I'm worried about the corona. And it just got canceled. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be an enemy. It pains me to say this. It fucking pains me, but I am curious what Featherston turns up because he knows what he's doing with those public record requests.
He was born for this. Yeah.
So if there's a way to identify whoever did it, he's going to. I would just say I noticed Kirk said to himself kind of on the show, he said, well, some might say this is spectacularly overreactive and unfair, the reaction to the rat. And I would hope that so that to me indicates like it's all in, it's fun. If it turns out it's just some legit concerned citizen, I would hope everybody dials it back. It doesn't treat them like they're reaching out.
So that caller today threw out John as a potential suspect. And I will say, John has spent his life watching the moves of one Bob Murchison. So if there's anyone to know how to act as a Bob Murchison, it would be John himself. So there is that to look out for. He does know how to censor because he's seen someone in the act of censoring so many times. There's the obvious names, Riccio, Murchison, maybe Gina. I did see someone in Discord, I think, throw out that it could be Linda Marks because she never got she never got paid in full from Steve, and it's coming up on the 1 year anniversary of the vigil. So maybe Linda Marks. I think it's someone a little closer to the show, and that would be Steve's wife. Because after Sacco, if you remember, Steve had to quarantine because I see it, but just wait, because Steve had to quarantine because she was not happy about the COVID risk. And I could see maybe she's not happy about it this time. So she did what she could to make sure it was a little safer. And I disagree with Steve. It is safer to be outdoors than indoors. So that's my theory is close to home.
Ooh, Ziggy, I thought you'd been snipped, but
nope.
Yeah. Wow, man, we'll get you a wheelbarrow for
that
those
was clearly
balls bringing up Mrs. Robinson.
No joke in that accusation. That was 100%.
I think you're on the right track in the sense that it's not Steve's wife, but I think it's the libs. The libs are up to no good.
One in the state.
We know Steve's wife is a lib. You live in a very liberal state, as do I. It wouldn't shock me if there's some lady who lives across the street who, knows that. So there's a couple different theories here. There's the disgruntled Minifan theory. There's the KMS enemy theory. And then there could just be the town Karen theory. To me, it doesn't really matter which one it is because, like Kirk said, the show's gonna be just as good outside as it was inside. Like, this is what they do. It's their bread and butter. I mean, they did an ice fishing extravaganza in the middle of nowhere, Maine. So they're not really gonna they're not gonna struggle to adapt. And I don't know how hard they're gonna look for the source of the problem. But like you said, Featherson's the guy to have on the case.
So this ends with TJ Hubbard shitting in some citizen's mailbox. I'm telling you, it's going to be ugly.
That'll be a big shit.
When you mention it outside, I looked it up on Google Maps, and I don't know if it's like downtown Florence. I don't even know if there is a downtown Florence, but it is on a corner lot. So the thought of them having like some kind of PA system and Kirk telling like an abortion joke, although it is a liberal area, so the abortion jokes might fly there, but going over the line and it being like projected into the town square, that's kind of a funny image. So maybe there'll be some drama coming from that. Also, I know Sheldon from North Dakota is making the trek out. He won a ticket, or someone won a ticket and gave it to him.
Really?
And it is a good thing that they're going to be outside because who knows what kind of diseases that guy has. He is so close to those cattle. I've seen some pictures. I've seen some video. I would be wary if you see Sheldon moseying up to you at the buffet. That's all I'm going to say.
And he's going to be just licking door handles in every state he drives through. To make sure he brings a little present for everybody. All right. My last question on the VFW is similar to the way I from a content listener perspective, I've been hoping Steve might have to answer to Kirk as to that, apparent would seem like a screw up with the raffle drawing. Similarly, there's a lot of people posting this image online of that the town the event's in supposedly on October 8th declared, that indoor performance venue, indoor events were going to be banned henceforth because of coronavirus. So it does raise the question of, did Steve book an indoor event in a town that had publicly made it clear they were not going to allow those things? And that's just a question that I would like to hear the discussion on the show about, because I'm curious if Steve said, yeah, they declared it, but we're going to try to sneak it in. And worst case scenario, we go to the parking lot. Maybe he didn't know about the local rule and was only considering the state ones. Maybe the VFW misled him. Who knows? But they know, and I would love to hear the discussion about that.
So from my understanding, and God knows I would want this to be Steve's fault. But I did some digging. I did some asking around. It definitely seems like the VFW was told by the Board of Health that like they got the okay, because originally they said they could do 100 people, 95 tickets. And then Vice Commander Tom said, no, actually we're going to have to drop it down to 45 because of the state. So there was some communication there. And then it appears from what I've gathered is the Board of Health has flipped again and is now like tightening it for whatever reason. And that's where most likely it's someone ratted them out or dropped a line or raised concern. But I wish we could blame Steve here. It seems like the VFW was the one handling the logistics, and they had the okay from the state. But if you notice, Steve was quick to say Vice Commander Tom had a backup plan. If Steve had the backup plan, I think that's where we can put blame on him. Like we're lucky that it was Vice Commander Tom that had the backup plan in place, that he was in charge. He saw one avenue, couldn't go there, had to zig. Had another plan. So if Steve was in charge, it would have been an absolute mess. But did I spin that enough where there was some blame on Steve, but not enough? But
you tried, but to be fair, if Steve had not had a contingency plan ready to go at the drop of a hat, because it's a global pandemic. Like, of course, the possibility of the event being, not allowed indoors was always there.
Mhm.
So if Steve hadn't on a dime been able to say, yep, can't do it indoors, we know exactly what we're going to do. We planned for this, plan B, I would kill him for not having a plan.
Right. And so Mayo, you've said in the past, and this is a direct quote.
Come on. I don't remember what I said. This is unfair. It's unfair.
No.
I can't be held accountable for things I've said.
This is a compliment, you dolt. If you have a fundraiser, this is a direct quote. If you have a fundraiser and at the end of the day, there's any ambiguity on the part of the donor as to where their money went and how it was used, then you fucked up as a fundraiser. This show...
I said that?
You said that. This show... It doesn't check any of those boxes. Yeah, it moved outside. Yeah, there's a pandemic going on, but there can't be any criticism on Steve about where the money's going and how money is being dealt with. So in your eyes, in my eyes, we all agree it's a successful fundraiser.
Over 40K, right? That's a good thing.
Well, I did want to ask you guys about that. Do we know the number of tickets they sold?
I don't think we'll ever know the exact number, but
the number's out. The number's out there.
Was it like 16 or 1700? That's what Kirk referenced, like 1670 something, I think, right? Yeah. So let's call it 1600, okay? I'm using a calculator here, gentlemen. Times 25. That's 40 grand. And I guess that's,
that's what I just said. I just said
low,
over 40 grand.
Well, I don't trust you. I trust the machine, and the machine confirmed that that's 40 grand. That is I'm not putting down the VFW when I say this, but for a VFW,
cut the mic.
That's a crazy amount of money.
Yes.
And it's good. I mean, it's good, but like, you're not going to find a VFW or an American Legion Hall or, any of these similar groups anywhere in the country, I think, that is getting $40,000 like that. That's
right. And it's not just going to the building, like it's going for Thanksgiving meals, right? To feed the vets that are in need. Yeah. And those are American vets, Taliban vets, Vietnamese vets, Viet Cong, Korean. So all vets are going to be fed, are going to be taken care of. So yeah, it's definitely it does not meet any of those criteria that Mayo so eloquently put before.
I agree.
Very good fundraising effort.
I have to agree. And that's why people always think, people will tell me I'm accusing them of stealing and stuff like that. And it's never that. Maybe sometimes I would say, like, I would accuse Steve of it, but it's usually just, busting balls. But most of the time I'm commenting on their process, because that's what I'm interested in is, it's these guys that are new to running a little business like this, and I'm interested in the way they do it. And sometimes they might fuck it up. But in this case, it seems like they, learned some lessons from before. And I guess whatever you want to call it, that Mayo bar, they passed it.
Damn, boy. Damn, boy, he's thick. Boy, that's a thick ass boy. Damn.
All right. So let's jump into the state of the show, gentlemen. Ziggy, is the show in a slump?
No. Next question.
I agree. VD, is the show in a slump?
Absolutely not. Big Steve and Kirk, what else could you ask for?
So do you think
Mayo is the show in a slump?
I don't think so, but it is different. And I think that not so much that I would argue the show's in a slump, but that there does seem to be a larger portion of people on Twitter and Reddit and elsewhere. I'm not in Discord anymore, but I don't know about in there. There does seem to be a larger portion of people who feel that way. That sentiment does seem to be out there, and we saw Kirk reacting to it a bit on Twitter. So what do you think is driving that sentiment among some people?
What I see most commonly is when I see people who are very vocal about stuff like that, all it takes is like 2 minutes of looking into it where you realize, okay, this guy's a disgruntled Discord guy, or this guy is pissed because Kirk shit on his YouTube show, or this guy just, he actually likes Jerry more and he wants more of this, or, everyone has their little thing, but if you look one layer beneath the surface, it's never really about the show. And part of that is annoying, and part of that just shows how good the show is, where I've said it on here before, like I've stopped listening to other podcasts before and I'm not able to air my grievances on Twitter or contact anyone involved with the show directly, just because that isn't the nature of the show. But in this world, people are so hooked on the show, and the show is so good that it's like almost like cheering for a sports team, where it's like they want to just get their takes out there And it comes, a lot of the hate, I think, or a lot of the criticism comes from a place deep down of people love the show and they just want it to be, they're very passionate about it, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, I think it's probably been 6 or 7 weeks now without Mike. So that's maybe less than 10% of the show's history has been without Mike. So you're going to have some adjustment period where you're losing someone from the show. And I think they went through that. And they're now in a rhythm where it kind of works to Steve's advantage where it's election season. Personally, like I've said this before, the political talk's not my favorite. Sorry, I got something popping off my screen here.
Ziggy, close this shit down. What are you doing?
Don't worry about it.
You playing Minesweeper while you talking?
It was an Adobe update.
You playing that game
from
when computers first came out with the mouse and the maze and the cheese and the blocks? You playing that game?
Yes, Snake. Minesweeper, yeah. The political talk's not my favorite, and I kind of have the election fatigue that Kirk in the last week or two has kind of hinted at, where I think it was last week he said like the election talk's getting really claustrophobic, and this week it might have been Wednesday where he started the show saying like I don't really want political, or I don't want an election. Like he doesn't have patience for it. And like I felt that because I just don't care about the topic, but they're like the Tubin story last week. That's a good example. I saw that on Twitter. I saw Steve retweet it, and my initial reaction was, okay, I'm not looking forward to this because I don't know who it is. I don't care about it. But then it was obviously it was like a carry the week in a way last week. The Biden, I've said in the past, the Trump sound, like they're at least reacting to funny sound. So it's fine. It is what it is. I'm excited to see what happens with Mike, because as I've said, I miss Mike's absence on the show because I think he does a really good job of carrying along with Kirk's jokes where Steve lacks in that. Mayo, you had a fantastic interview with Kirk a couple months ago, right? And
I did,
in that you said that
the
number one interview of Kirk, yeah, way better than Menner's biographical interview. In that you guys talked about like Kirk doing improv. He took exception to a comment you had made about him not doing traditional improv, and that is
Quantum
really
Week,
where
Chris improv.
Yes, there you go. You watched it probably more than anyone else has watched that interview.
VD's got me beat.
In that, like, I think Mike has some ability to do the improv with Kirk. Steve, like, clearly has none of it. So this week they're talking about Doc Emmerich, right? And Kirk was saying he's an abortion doctor and he's on the Zamboni doing abortions. He's doing this whole bit, right? Steve's input was, yeah, that's a messy slap shot. It's like, all right, then the bit's dead. There's nothing to build off of. Like, I think Mike would be able to carry on that. And that's to me what's missing without Mike, or even without a third person that has a better sense of humor that can keep with Kirk. I mean, the movie stuff that you hinted at earlier with where Kirk's talking about like veterans and he's dropping movie names. Like, I guess that's not a humor thing. It's a pop culture thing that just goes over Steve's head. But I just think Steve's not always on the same wavelength with Kirk's humor. And to me, that's what's missing. So I definitely would not call it a slump. It's been an adjustment without him. I just hope that when Mike comes back, he can come back and ramp up to 3, 4, 5 days a week. And I guess we'll see what happens. But
I mean, it would be a messy slap shot. I didn't catch Steve saying that. That is hilarious.
Yeah, that's the Steve derangement syndrome. I cannot help but catch those little things where he totally misses the joke.
I think I'm with you, Ziggy. If I hear you correctly, I think we might agree that Mike brings a skill set to the show or contributions to the show that are complementary to Steve's in the sense that I agree. I think a lot of what Mike's good at is the stuff that Steve doesn't excel at. Mm-hmm. And I think the shows without Mike have really have highlighted that and showed, we all love to shit on Mike, but I think it's really demonstrated his value and what he brings to it. And it is that he's just better at being silly. And sometimes that's missing. And sometimes, with Steve, Steve's, Kirk will say, what else you got? And it does often to me feel like Steve, I think, has trouble going beyond bringing political topics to the table. And sometimes when he does go beyond politics, it'll be like a Barstool story. And I don't know the ins and outs of Barstools, but then I'll see on Twitter or I'll get DMs from people telling me that whatever take on the Barstool story Steve gave Kirk was, wildly inaccurate. And that's another area where I thought, Mike might be better. But yeah, it felt like I didn't know if Steve could be pushing himself more to cater to more of Kirk's broader taste, because Kirk can obviously talk politics and talk it well, and it's funny and entertaining. But you're right, it's missing the pop culture stuff. You know, Kirk asked about even the Amy Schumer participation in some women's march in the Boston area, and Steve didn't have it.
That's a miss right there. Yeah.
Is Mike talented in that regard? I think you guys are onto something, but I think you're being incredibly complimentary.
So to be clear, I disagree with Mayo on Mike's Barstool knowledge, because Mike definitely lacks the Barstool knowledge. Just to cut you off there.
That's fine.
I don't agree with that.
I wasn't listening.
Put it on the record. I think that you're both being wildly over complimentary of Mike, and I love Mike. I'm glad he's coming back, but is it more that Mike is talented at filling a void, or is it more that he's just a good wall that Kirk can bounce things off of? Like on the show before, I think Mike is great at being kind of a parrot and rewording things that Kirk just said with different words. Like Kirk will say a joke and Mike kind of can just add a little something to it, where he's never like bringing out these legendary show moments. Kirk's had some fun kind of digging into stuff with him, but I think it's unfair to say of Steve that he has no improv skills. I mean, he's good. He's gone on some great tangents recently.
What do you mean by
if you think of legendary show moments,
can you give an example?
How many of them involve Steve? Whether it's him and his policies on roadkill, the Robinson rules, his time at Bowdoin, his Bowdoin writings. Like, there's a lot to Steve, and I think now that the show's been going on for a year and a half, a lot of that onion has been peeled back. So he's not as shiny of a new toy. Like, no one's really shocked by things that Steve does anymore. Like, everyone has a read on him. Like, he's the wacky political guy from Maine that hates libs. And I think for the first year of the show, we were discovering that all. And now that it's kind of out there, he has had to adapt. But I think he's been pretty good in improv scenarios. Like, obviously, is he the funniest guy in the world? No, but the same reasons that people hate Steve are the reasons I love them. So I understand that there are haters out there.
I don't necessarily disagree with any of that. Like, yeah, Steve has become a great persona on the show, much more than in the first, in the early days of the show, more than I ever thought he would. And Kirk got that all out of him, and now we know he's just as crazy as everybody else. But that to me doesn't negate the fact that the show needs more than just that dynamic with Steve. And even if that's what Mike brings to the table, it doesn't mean Mike's the most wildly talented guy in the world. But I guess it's hard to articulate exactly what he brings to the show, other than, like I said, like there's a certain silliness. Like Steve's not a particularly silly, wacky guy. Like, even the funny stuff about Steve, maybe I'm misreading it, and maybe he is leaning into how funny it is. But sometimes it seems like it's Steve just sharing truths about himself that happen to be funny, but it's not like Steve's necessarily trying to make them funny.
I think he's gotten aware of what people will find funny. It all is now. I don't think any of it is like faked or constructed, but I do think how he presents himself, he knows that there's a humor to it now. But do you read into my, like, do you enjoy Carabas when he's on the show, or when they have a third chair fill in? Do you think it fills that void that's missing? So is it more of a third chair issue, or is it more of a mic issue?
Yeah,
it's a third chair.
Yeah, and it very well could be that. For me, it's like we only know the third chair being Mike, other than the Carabas a couple times or KFC calling in. We've only seen it with Mike. That's why for me, I go back to I miss Mike. I guess maybe it's more fair to say I miss someone else other than Steve talking besides Kirk. But I'm kind of I do as well have the soft spot for Mike. What did Kirk say? Like, he's a sentimentalist. Like I that is me towards Mike. When they called him and he picked up, there's something, I don't know, I got like butterflies hearing that stupid dumb voice of his on the other side of the line. He's just a lovable guy. So maybe that's not enough to carry to sit in the chair 5 days a week. I've always been an advocate for different voices, like Whitney, like Ryan Whitney or Big Cat or Carabas. Hopefully we'll finally get Carabas back once a week. But go ahead, Mayo.
There was a caller into the show a few weeks back who suggested to Kirk that maybe they could get a rotating cast of people in that third seat. Sounded handsome, eloquent, like he smelled nice all the time, regardless of when the last shower was. So, yeah, I agree. I'm excited for Mike to come back. I will also admit that 2 months into Mike's return, if he's there 5 days a week, I could be on a YouTube show saying I don't want Mike there 5 days a week.
Right.
And that's just because, I always thought I loved the casting couch on EEI because, Kirk, like Trenny with Kirk is like nobody else in the world is going to get out of Trenny what Kirk did. And you could replace Trenny with anybody in that situation. Kirk's going to get stuff out of him that nobody else is going to. So to me, it makes sense. It's like, I want to hear Kirk with as diverse a cast of people as possible. So even though I like the Mike, Stephen, Kirk dynamic, I think I would still end up feeling a little wanting of getting some people in the mix more than just that. And I don't know if Mike's built to be a co-host. I don't know.
Let me throw something out there. Go ahead. Well, Kirk has been pretty clearly flirting with Cullinane lately on Twitter. Right?
Yeah.
Is there a chance that
I think it's escalated to dry humping.
Is there a chance he has a role on the show in some capacity, whether it's sales, whether it's merch, or maybe a third voice? Probably not. I'll probably get ripped for that. But is there a chance that happens?
There's
not
a chance.
while he's working for Jerry.
Yeah.
Right. But those two things aren't mutually exclusive. I think. Is there a chance? There's a chance that absolutely anything could happen with the show.
That helps.
Like nothing would surprise me. I would, if in 6 months Dave Cullinane was the third voice, a couple days a week, maybe full time, helping out in production behind the scenes. I would absolutely love that because he is kind of that same Mike thing where he's a lovable dope, but it's pretty clear that his work ethic might be a little bit stronger than Mike's. He's certainly more confident. He's got that go-getter kind of business attitude. I would love it, and I will never rule that out.
I don't think I want anyone in that seat, that third seat, on a permanent basis. Even Carabas, I really enjoy the Carabas episodes much more than I ever thought I would because I fucking hate all I knew was the Rocket persona, and I hated that guy. But I really like him on Kirk's show. But I feel like I wouldn't enjoy him 5 days a week.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I wasn't. Maybe it sounded like I was advocating for that, but I wasn't. I just think the moments, VD, you talked about earlier, like the epic show moments, like to me, Mike has had some hand in those. And obviously it's Kirk driving them. And most of them, like you said, a lot of them, Steve was like the butt of the joke or involved in it, but Mike's there playing along and getting, I really don't want to give him too much credit because I know that's going to be the criticism.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're in your
I
own
absolutely
head.
am. Yes, I absolutely am.
We like Mike. He's gonna drive us all crazy when he's back on the show, but I think we're happy he's coming back. Part of what I was saying, I think, is what you're both hinting at too. Is there's perhaps the greatest skill Kirk has is just like being able to draw stuff out of people. So anytime we get someone new in there on a consistent basis, regardless of who it is, it's incredibly entertaining because it's just like it's a raw sculpture that he can kind of chisel away at. So that's why I love having, I've loved having more guests in Mike's absence. I think even if Mike were to come back in the future a couple days a week, that is just a cool opportunity. And like the Epstein interview, it wasn't fully for me, but I just listened through it, like kind of zoned out, whatever. And Kirk says that if the interview isn't for you, it's not a big deal. I'd rather have him have the conversation than not, because This is the only podcast in the world where the standard is so high that if there's like 3 seconds of audio that someone doesn't like, they go crazy. Like, oh, this 10-second caller is ruining the show. The show is screwed to fail. The show's going to fail now. Barstool's going to fire Kirk. Like it has such a high standard, which just again speaks to the passion of the fans. But yeah.
Can I ask you guys something along those lines in this topic? As far as the show content, one other thing that they did scale back on was the amount of Minifan universe talk. And they said a while back, I think it was like May or June, that they were going to make a concerted effort not to bring that to the table as much. Do you think that did you like that decision? Do you enjoy the in-world stuff? Do you want to see more of it? Because Kirk really shits on the idea of, bringing fans in, but I think even not once a week, but every once in a while, even if it was a disaster, I think it would be an entertaining disaster to bring fans in, or you know. And I like the in-world stuff. I like him flipping out on DEC, and I love that shit. But it seems polarizing. It seems like the fan base is really hit or miss on that. You either love that stuff or you fucking want nothing to do with it.
I mean, we'll find out, right, when they have the 2 raffle winners go in studio. I think everyone's expecting a flop there, which I don't know why.
I'm expecting fireworks.
Well, it'll be a flop from the perspective of that person. Those people will be puddles, and
but they're not. He's not having people on to be great broadcasters.
No,
exactly.
No, I'm saying it'll be good, but it's not like they're gonna be so good that they'll come back. Is my point.
Right, of course, but no one should expect. It's a straw man argument when people say that. No one is expecting them to be like, oh, all of a sudden we have we found this diamond in the rough. But I love the inside stuff. Red says it all the time. Like, let's get claustrophobic with it, because obviously I'm balls deep in KMS Twitter and content. So I love it. I did love it even before I was on Twitter. I loved hearing Kirk rip Manners, and I do think there is something to the sense of, I like what you're saying, Mayo, about having fans come in every now and then, but I do think it has to happen naturally. Otherwise, we get people like Manners who jump up and down, waving their arms just because they want to be mentioned on the show.
I wouldn't do that.
Once that starts, no, you would never do that. Once that starts happening, I think it does kind of ruin it, because you just get idiots like Manners ruining it for everyone, basically. So I think there's been a decent balance of it. I think at times maybe a little low, but never to the point where I don't think they ever completely ignore anything that should be talked about. Could they talk about more? Yes, but there's never something that I'm like, if they don't talk about this, then they're being assholes, Right.
Like the Steve from Providence stuff. That's a good example with the walk. We didn't get to that earlier with the VFW. But he's obviously one of the most well-known kind of show fan bit characters, and he drives content, in my opinion. I was looking at the show's Twitter page, which Steve is doing a terrible job of running, and no one could disagree with that. And of the last 2 weeks, the video with the most likes, or the tweet with the most likes by far, was Steve from Providence's video that he did of him trying to put on that costume. Like, there are some people out there that some Minifans that are able to kind of create content on their own, and I think I think someone like Steve it would be good or entertaining if he were in studio maybe once a quarter, once a month, whatever.
I'd love that.
If something topical came up, like him giving Mike the go ahead on the stand up, like if he came into studio and Kirk ripped him, like something like that could be entertaining. But I think, I don't know, I enjoy it, but I'm not like dying to have it, the Minifan talk, when it's not there. I guess to answer your long-winded question with the long-winded answer, Mayo.
Because
my question was long-winded?
Yes.
No.
For me, it was. For me.
The Miniverse is what sets this show apart from every other podcast.
Yes.
Otherwise, like, if they weren't to talk about it at all, like, what am I coming here for? Like, just talk about current events? It's like, no, that's part of the show. But then this whole other unique thing that you can't really get anywhere else is this crazy drama that happens in the world and with these people. And I think they have a pretty decent balance of it.
And that is one of the criticism we have had of Mike in the past, is he should be the person on top of the Minifan drama, on top of what's going on in the Miniverse. And he really was lacking, because he was muting everyone, and he was just missing everything. Kirk is the one that sees everything. He's bringing that stuff up. So if Mike comes back, or if they have someone else in that chair, hopefully it's someone that can pay more attention to that drama, or create some kind of content that involves the Minifans. Because like you said, it does make the podcast even more unique than it already is.
Yeah, I think Mike backed away from that. I think I don't think he could mentally take it. I think he had to back away from those types of interactions and that immersion with the fans. So hopefully, if he is doing better, he can get back into that. The last thing I want to say about Mike is I saw people making the argument to Kirk that he was treating Mike like Entercom treated him, and then some of the same people saying the show's in a slump. So I would say if you think the show's in a slump, consider whether or not part of the reason the show's dynamic has been off is because Mike's missing, and that the decision not to replace Mike could be Kirk's way of saving that seat for him. And I know people often question how much he cares about Mike, but I think
that's silly to question. That's so stupid to question.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, it's like, well, the guy's seat is still there, you know,
Right.
and this is a show that Kirk obviously cares very much about. And so that's not something he would do lightly.
I'm so glad you said that, Mayo. It's very well said. And just another place where Menners was 100% wrong. He came on this show and was like, Kirk's a bad leader. He doesn't care about Mike. And then he also was burying Mike, saying he's never going to get the chair back. You know, the show's going to leave him behind. He won't have an opportunity. So, I mean, Kirk's a man of his word. Menners is too dumb to realize that. Will it work out with Mike? I hope so, but he's at least going to have a shot.
I guess some of the lethargy or the paranoia or the sluggishness that you could get if you're just, you know, smoking a blunt.
All right, let's jump into random notes. VD, do you have any random notes that are urine related?
I have a great one this week. Yeah, actually, thank you for queuing that up. What a coincidence. We had Kirk saying when Steve was in the bathroom that his piss stream was so strong, he called him the Bryson DeChambeau of pissing, which I think it's the third or fourth time Kirk has referenced how strong Steve's stream is. So I look forward to one day in person being able to hear it live, you know.
Maybe you'll feel it too, VD.
If I'm lucky.
Who's Bryson DeChambeau?
He's that golfer. He can drive the ball like 400 yards.
The guy Whitney was talking about?
Yeah, it's actually pretty fitting for Big Steve haters because I think he's known as a douche that everyone kind of doesn't like. So maybe, you know, Ziggy would probably say it's a good comparison. But I do have an issue. I'll just bring it up now because why not? I have Mayo, the man here. People like Ziggy, when they go after Steve or other Steve haters on Twitter, they sometimes get mad that he fights back. Or it's even the same thing with Kirk where people get mad like, oh, he shouldn't fight back. Like, Mayo, I've criticized you of this before, where you'll kind of have a criticism of Kirk and get mad that he doesn't just give you a sticker and say, thank you, Mayo. I love your opinion. You're right. I'm going to change the show. Now, I do think that comes from an innocent place. I don't think you're being an asshole. I mean, you do like to be an asshole on Twitter, but I don't think you're actually being evil. You've said in the past, and I quote, you know how much shit Steve has taken from the Minifans, parentheses, like Ziggy, parentheses, and then we all get our panties in a bunch when he gives some of it back. I like Steve fighting back. And so I guess I would say, do you still believe that statement?
I think so, because even when that time I called in and it got well, I guess there was twice it got pretty ugly. Well, but one time, Steve...
We can clarify something about that call before you get into it. Because on this show, we had the stance that you initially called in with lighthearted, friendly intentions, and then you got a little bit of heat put on you, and it just went off the rails. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I called in. I thought the premise would be, because Kirk was... ironically, which I was 100% right that they were, he was ironically pretending to embrace like the me and the Kelleher's and Red. So I thought it'd be funny to call in and reject it. But then it went the way it went. So yeah, when they said like, well, you're not bringing examples to the table, I didn't go into it expecting for it to go down that road. But when it was clear Kirk wanted to, I also didn't want to back down. So yeah, it turned into what it turned into, and I wasn't prepared for that. And maybe that's probably my fault. I probably shouldn't ever engage with them without being prepared for that.
Correct.
But yeah, I did want to try to keep it or try to make it funny, but I failed. But
speaking of fails, Ziggy,
oh jeez,
we had a parody song this week.
It was great, right?
The lyrics were decent. Production wasn't too bad. I don't know what we can do about your singing voice, but I will applaud you for putting it out there. You have more balls than I ever would, even if you don't show your face on camera. I would never, ever submit a parody song with my terrible singing voice. So my hat is off to you. I do have a criticism of Steve, maybe the first time I've ever criticized him on this show. I think he went way too easy on you, and I haven't corresponded with him privately. I don't know if there's something bigger at play. I have to check in, but
Steve knows good music when he hears it. So
if maybe Steve did like your music, and that's the worst indicator you could possibly have.
That's true. I think Steve was a little afraid of. He said a couple times, "I don't want to be biased. I don't want to cloud your judgment." So he was definitely afraid of accusations of being biased. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a good song. It was one of those things where you hear it so many times that you convince yourself maybe it's not that bad. And as soon as they did the Periscope on Sunday, and they said something like, "Oh, that wasn't the worst song we heard tonight," I went back and I went back and I listened to the song, and it was like I was listening with a totally different song. That I was like, "Why did I submit this?"
Did you get that same feeling you got when you were like a little kid and you got sent to the principal's office? That like that heat.
Yeah.
Up
Why
your
did
spine?
I just jump on the bed, jump on the desk and attack?
Yeah.
Yes. It was yes. It wasn't my best, but hey, I shot my shot, and
Will we
Ziggy,
get
do you know songs can rhyme? You can rhyme.
That song rhymed.
A lot of songs rhyme.
Do you know that song doesn't always rhyme on every verse?
What fucking song was that?
Atlantic City by the band. Hey,
Bruce Springsteen cover. I will salute you for doing the cover. It is tough because that song actually doesn't really rhyme, but maybe you have some creative license to rhyme in there, or maybe you pick a song that rhymes in the future. There's some work to be done, but I'm glad you did it. And will we get another Ziggy song?
I got some very good advice from a very good parody songwriter. I don't want to say who because I don't think he wants his name associated with my song. I tried to take his advice. I just missed on the aspect of you need to have a good voice and you need to have good lyrics.
The blind mic drops saved you. Those saved you.
Yes, I got a good laugh out of those. And now every time I hear that Madawaska sound, anytime I hear any of those, now it's like Pavlov's dog. I hear that song, instrumental song. So that's kind of an issue, but it is what it is. I tried.
My grandmother has breast cancer.
That was good.
It's so bad. It's like a quiver in his voice. It's a quiver in his voice. It's so bad.
It's terrible. While we're on the subject of drops, Mayo, I know this has been one of your long-held grievances. What's the deal with Steve not playing your Madawaska drops that you spent so much time cutting up? I mean, I know that weighs heavy on your heart to this day.
I just think they're good.
Forgive Steve? Do you forgive Steve?
I don't forgive Steve. So Ziggy, thanks for paying attention in the DMs.
No. Why would you forgive him though? He has nothing to
for never using him.
Yeah, for never using. Maybe you can resend them. Maybe this will reignite it.
And every if they were played on the show, I would want every single time one is played for Steve to say Andy Mayo sent those to me.
I don't expect that.
Kirk, just so you know, Andy Mayo helped us out by cutting these up. I just think they'd be funny. The mistake on my part, I think one of you pointed this out to me, is I think I sent him like 32 clips of Mike and Madawaska's, and maybe 10 of them would be really good to use. So maybe I put too much of the burden on Steve to go through and curate what I sent him. But if anybody else wants them, I cut up a lot of really good drunk Mike clips from Madawaska.
Steve, here's this funny podcast audio from Madawaska. You should play it on the show.
Well, yeah, because Kirk had asked for it once, and I was in my one of the kicks of like, oh, maybe I should try to help the show more. So I cut it out.
I sent Steve the breast cancer drop because Kirk asked for it and I had it already, and I didn't expect, like, you don't expect the credit on the air. You would maybe expect an email back saying thank you, but whatever, it is what it is. And Steve is notorious for not thanking people that send him stuff. So
infamous,
no surprise there.
Infamous,
thank you. It was very ironic that you said that.
He says thank you to the Robba fans. But another thing I wanted to ask you, Mayo, is you're a well-known snitch. Do you have any advice for Justin in his future snitching endeavors? Because it seems like his early ones got him in trouble.
Yeah. I think similar to when I snitched, my advice to Justin would be snitch if it's going to keep you in the boss's good graces, in being Kirk and Steve. So if Justin needs to snitch because that's what the job calls for, and I felt like my job as a producer of a YouTube show was to give them a heads up that there was some jokes made about a sponsor, and I stand by it, and I would tell Justin to do the same thing, and don't fucking worry about it if people call you a snitch. Plus, he's a lot bigger than me, so he could physically defend himself better than I could. So
I guess I will say I do agree with you snitching on Menners. He was out of line. He probably should have been banned forever, if not put in jail. But I think you're exactly
murdered.
Right. I think intern Justin was in the right. Now the place I worry is we already had a little bit of this last week when when he started getting a little heat from people for snitching on Will, he quickly resorted to the screenshotting the text messages, which is not good. So I guess your best advice for him would be you just got to run with it. You can't, because I've seen it again on Twitter this week, people saying, oh, you just love snitching on people, just busting his balls basically. And it's weird because I feel like before he got a bigger role with the show, he had way thicker skin, and then something has changed as soon as he kind of moved forward. And I know a flip definitely, or I don't know, but I think a flip definitely switched with Kirk, where he maybe would take it easy on him. He's an intern, and now that he's given this new responsibility, Kirk has been like riding his ass, like, welcome to the big leagues. Now you can see it's not so easy, like what Mike was doing every day, basically. Like, just be ready to be under fire, basically.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I mean, to be fair though to Justin, being called big man by people at Marty Mile, that's pretty intimidating.
Yeah,
Justin, I like
that was the reason he gave, that he was too scared.
I like Tim and Canton introduced me to this term today. Smack addict. I just never. I know heroin's called smack, but I've never heard smack addict. But Justin's undercover smack addict persona was. I would like more of that.
Third time's the charm, right?
I would not go. I would not go in there if I was Justin.
Oh, those are my people. I'd be in there. I'd get some great content. I should have probably gave Justin some advice, but I do think his accent that he put on, and
so hilarious.
When he was able to get into character, I was thrilled. I'm hoping that Justin hosts Justin and the Minifans on today, later tonight.
Ebonics Justin. Yeah,
Ebonics. So we cool over there.
I did like the first time when the first time that he tried and failed, Kirk was like, what did you expect? Augusta fucking National. So yeah, Justin creating some more content, even though I guess it is good they gave him the chance to redeem himself, not once but twice. So it did a good job getting that video finally.
One random note I noticed was Kirk this week, and it's the second time he's done this in the past few weeks. He made some allusion to him going back to radio. And in this case, he said, I think he was talking about a terrible caller asked about EEI, and Kirk said, it almost makes me want to go back to kick everyone's asses. And he said, not that I ever would. But a week or two ago, I couldn't go back and find it, but he was talking about something, and he said something about how he used to do a more traditional show, and he said, and who knows, maybe I will again one day, and then just moved on quickly. It was like it was an aside, but I'm not saying he's going to do that, but it's just interesting to me that he twice now has alluded to that. So that premise, that concept is kicking around somewhere in his head, and I'm very curious about that.
Maybe if you followed more than one person on Twitter, you would see that he also tweeted Friday that, maybe I'll just go back to talking about Brady or something. It was something in relation to that in a larger tweet.
But that's saying it in a way that's like he's shitting on that idea. Whereas these other two times he said it with almost a little bit of
I think
that maybe it's a possibility.
I mean, it was like a month ago, or I guess it was before Sacco. They did that whole like trying to do a week on some small radio station somewhere, and it seemed like they made an effort to actually reach out to people or field some offers. You look confused behind that Batman mask, Mayo.
No, I'm just stupid. I'm just
okay.
Stupid.
That's true. But speaking of radio, we did get the Mutt segment, calling into Mutt at night. I don't know. I did see some people not like that. I love that. I mean, I guess it's maybe the nostalgia, but I enjoyed that.
I've always wished one thing I've always wanted when Kirk was leaving EEI. I was like, I hope he has his own show someday. And I don't care if it's 15 years from now, and he's got all new fans who never knew about EEI. I hope he still will just randomly turn on EEI and just shit all over whatever he hears. And he didn't quite do that with Mutt because he loves Mutt, but right. I will never tire of EEI bashing. Doesn't matter if the faces change, the personalities change. I will never tire of that.
Yeah, that wasn't EEI bashing. That was just
ragging Mutt.
Just good old ragging Mutt.
That handsome caller also alluded to Mutt being a great fit on the show.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, in the same vein, kind of as that. Actually, I guess I'll just read this tweet just to clarify because I am right, and I'm going to prove the point when I'm right. Kirk said, "This is why I lose my mind every 6 months or 3. It's my fault for doing these live shows. I'm an idiot. I'm going back to sports talk. It's a lot easier, and don't even get me started on Belichick and Brady." So I do think that kind of speaks to a little bit what you're saying. I don't think it'll ever happen. I think but the point I wanted to get to is we got a little bit of taste of that old bad radio feel when they were breaking down that podcast about Borat's new movie, which we hadn't gotten that format in a while, and I really enjoyed it. Anytime Kirk is talking over something and stopping them every 5 seconds and running it back, especially when it's like radio or a different podcast, like it's the best because it has ruined my listening experience for almost any piece of content I listen to, but in a good way.
So I definitely agree. Kirk reacting to sound is probably my favorite part of the podcast.
And I will say that was great sound pulled by Steve. Kirk even said it in the episode. Good find, Steve. Good pull. So a little head nod to Steve.
That golden shower is right around the corner, VD.
We've complimented Steve enough. I'm tired of it.
Speaking of podcasts, let me segue. Steve talking about Hillary Clinton's podcast. His whole premise was how bad it was. He was trashing it, but he was trashing it because it was a grief podcast with Patton Oswalt and Trayvon Martin's mother. Like, I don't know where the joke is there. And then he also said it wasn't a lot of laughs. Like, what was he expecting from a Hillary Clinton podcast talking about grief?
This is classic Ziggy, the Clinton operative. I've accused you of being a Clinton operative several times. True. Now you're going to come on these airwaves and try to defend the Hillary Clinton podcast?
I don't.
Are you out of your mind?
Because as Steve so eloquently put it, I say this as someone who thinks Hillary is responsible for dozens and dozens of murders. She came across sounding normal.
I had a Steve random note. Was Steve in one of the CBD ads this week used the phrase smoke a blunt, and he said it in such a way that left absolutely no doubt that Steve Robinson has never smoked a blunt in his life.
It was said in the same vein as when after they hung up with Whitney, where Steve said he sounds like he can hang. What does Steve know about hanging?
You're forgetting that Big Steve had a psychedelic little stage in college where he might have ate some mushrooms. It's kind of a red pill moment for him. But my jaw did drop when he said smoke a blunt. I clipped it right away.
For some reason, it's when he says the word tincture on that ad. There's something about that gets me. I know it's correct, but somewhat.
And it is a tremendous product. I've got another random note if you fellas are up for it.
I have a whole litany of random notes I want to expand on. Yes.
Clayton from Chattanooga today told Kirk that they should do a show there because Mark David Chapman, the guy who murdered John Lennon, went to a private school there. And Kirk said that's a real grabber. And then the guy said you could see 7 states from one spot. And Kirk on a dime went, I actually like that. And it was such a there's times that Kirk is he's such a dad. Like he loves puns, and sometimes he'll get going on like a pun train and just keep making them. That's a classic dad thing to do. But I love the idea of the Minahan clan on vacation. And the dad always gets the one thing that the dad gets to pick to do, and Kirk would pick the 7 states. But then I Googled Mark David Chapman because I thought I remembered something about Catcher in the Rye with him, and Kirk likes Catcher in the Rye. And so he didn't go to fucking school in Chattanooga. He didn't. Wow. I don't know where that guy got that. But
that makes it even better.
He did have a domineering father who left a huge imprint on his psyche. Went to private school for high school. Catcher in the Rye was his favorite book. He was reading it when the police came to get him after he murdered John Lennon. And he murdered John Lennon because he loved John Lennon, but then started disagreeing with John Lennon's political take. So all I'm saying, a lot of parallels to Kirky there. So if he ever does start giving Springsteen shit for his liberal views, I would watch out if I was the boss.
Psychoanalysis Mayo is my favorite Mayo, I must say.
Where's the psych book to hold up?
It's upstairs.
There was a lot of food talk from Kirk this week. So we talked about like the 9-inch sandwiches, the Goldilocks zones of Subway sandwiches.
It is.
Sure. No, it's not. 12 inches is the Goldilocks zone.
No, 12 inches makes me feel like a fat fuck and who I hate myself. A 9-inch grinder is ideal. It's just enough. You're full, but you don't hate yourself. It's
No.
perfect.
Do you agree with Ryan Minahan, who I now think is a fat ass, who said, "Oh yeah, 12 inch is too much. I like a 6-inch in a side order of fries. Like that's any different? Like that makes any difference?"
Is Ryan the one on YouTube with? Is Ryan the one who, when Kirk tells a Minifan he won't be their friend, Ryan becomes their best friend?
That's
Which
Adam.
Minahan brother does that?
Adam.
That would be Adam.
All right, then I do agree with Ryan.
Anyone with IBD like Ryan knows that it's the fries that get you in trouble. It's not the extra 3 inches of the sub.
Plus, I'm a huge leftovers guy, so if I don't finish something, I mean, I'm delighted to have a little bit left of it later.
Yeah, the move is for me to get the 12-inch, my wife to get the 12-inch, and then I have the remaining 6 that she doesn't want to get.
Yeah.
So you're eating 18. You're eating 18 inches of grinder.
Yeah, it's good math there, and it's not a grinder; it's a sub.
Ziggy, you don't look like a big guy. That's a lot of sandwich.
Yeah, I'm not a big guy.
But
I just said I had IBD, so that kind of explains it.
Maybe you do poop more times a day than I do. I didn't believe you when you told me that.
It's true. I'm the pro. So they also talked about so Kirk doesn't cut the sandwiches, right? Which doesn't really surprise because we know he has OCD behaviors. And if you cut a sandwich, it's like, which side is bigger? He'd have to get it so perfectly. But the things that surprised me was he said that he mixes his mashed potatoes and his steak together. Like
yes,
I pictured he had everything totally separate. And I could have sworn he said that before on the podcast.
He has. I think my flags went up too because I was like, he seems like I don't like my food touching guy. But I think there's just something about steak and potatoes.
Yeah, that's true.
I think in general, it probably would be.
He is. Yeah. Kirk is 100% right about cereal being eaten only best when dry.
This has been totally accurate. It's been the most polarizing moment since Wipegate, where people have been coming out of the woodworks on Twitter. Not that Mayo would see because he doesn't follow anyone, but they've been coming out of the woodwork.
More than one if you follow Rich Kelleher.
They've been coming out of the woodwork saying, "Oh yeah, dry cereal 100%." Ziggy says he's only had cereal once ever with milk, which is a clear lie. It's a clear lie.
Nope. I remember where it was.
No,
1,000% true. It was a traumatic experience for me.
This is the wiping thing. It's surreal. It's like how I felt on 9/11. It's like there was the world in my life, and then something happened, and just everything was different after that. Like the wiping thing. I swear to God, I had no idea that there were all these variations. It made me look at people in my life differently because all of a sudden I'm like, I wonder how they do it. And I don't want to know because if it's the wrong way, it's going to change how I feel about them. And then I didn't know there's fucking crazy people out there eating cereal with no milk.
It's the only way to do it. And I understand Steve's point where there's right before it gets soggy. That's the one thing I remember is like, I would try to get that real quick scoop. But I just remember everything was a soggy mess afterwards, maybe after two bites, and that was it. I mean,
So here's the questions I was asking people on Twitter is, do you like soup?
Yes. But I don't like when the saltine crackers get soggy in the soup.
But what about the vegetables that are like soggy?
They're already cooked. That's about the cracker in the soup is the example here. And I don't like a soggy cracker in the soup. I don't like when the oyster cracker gets soggy in the clam chowder.
Yeah, because
they put it on top and I'll eat it right away. But that's different because the vehicle there is the chowder or the soup. The vehicle in cereal is the cereal itself. That's the main course. So,
Big Steve makes a great corn chowder, by the way. But maybe it's the British person in me that I love soggy food. Like anytime I'm mixing everything, I love it soggy. I love cold food. I'll eat cold leftovers, overheating them up. It's just a very polarizing moment on Twitter right now.
Do you like tuna melts?
Yes.
I hate tuna. I hate canned tuna. I hate
Ziggy. All right, VD, you're out. Ziggy, do you like clam chowder?
Yes.
Get a tuna melt. Maybe you do this. Dip it in the clam chowder and take bites. And then what I do is the other half of the tuna melt, I put it in the clam chowder and I just let it get to the bottom of the bowl. And then I eat the rest of the clam chowder. And then there's a soggy clam chowder infused tuna melt half at the bottom of the bowl. And then I eat that with a spoon.
I know no one wants, this is a very uninteresting talk right now, but
this is the peak of the highlight of the show.
I won't even do, like, I would not do grilled cheese in tomato soup because, again, it's way too soggy. It makes the bread way too soggy. And the bread there, the grilled cheese is the main course. That's the vehicle.
Wild. Absolutely
it's not wild. It makes sense.
Totally learning a lot about each other.
I would rather eat out of the studio bathroom than eat whatever concoction you just laid out there. That sounds fucking disgusting. Which gets us to a point. That blog post, Ziggy,
Yes.
alleged Steve hater. Do you have anything bad to say about that blog? I laughed several times reading it out loud, to be honest.
You're insinuating, you're hinting at the DM I sent where I said that was actually not a bad blog by Steve, but it was not a bad blog by Steve because all of the blog was, here's this very funny thing happening on the show. Here's this very funny email. Hey, look, that was a funny email. So it was knock
Good
it
blog.
up.
Agreed.
Yeah, it was a very simple blog. The email was pretty wild. Like the guy's putting his foot in the line at drinking the toilet water from the bowl, but he's willing to have a couple scoops of toilet water in a spoonful. He just draws the line. He takes that firm stand at. Well, I mean, I do understand bobbing for beans does not sound very appetizing.
I was struggling to make it through the last 10 minutes of that show. I think on Thursday it was where they were getting very vivid about it. But I love that this guy, I think his name's Louis or Lewis. I love that he took the time to just walk us through his thought process in that email because it was just a view into his mind, which I don't know. I'm scared to look at what else is going on in his head, but it's going to be fascinating.
And he was clear to point out. Sorry, real quick. He was clear to point out that the email was not a joke.
Yeah.
Serious.
Yeah.
I would not eat the food out of the toilet, but if I were to sign up for that, I would absolutely write an email like that. I could definitely see myself doing that. I know I can see where that guy's coming from. That blog though, a couple weeks ago they were talking about with K Marco out, whether it would be beneficial to the show that they have their blogging power back. Mm-hmm. And Kirk, if I recall, kind of poo-pooed it. I think he said, like, I don't really see what that'll do for us. But to me, that blog was really good. Steve did a good job writing it. It's hard to write in someone's voice. And that you read that blog and you can hear it in Steve's voice. Yep. And it was funny. And I think that if there's someone out there who doesn't know about the Kirk Minahan show, but they are a perfect candidate, like if they heard it, they would love it. If that person read that blog, there's no way they're not going to go check out the Kirk Minahan show. It just encapsulated the show perfectly. And so I would hope that they can, I know other people have said this, but I would hope posting blogs like that on Barstool will get people into the show who are, prime candidates for it.
100%.
Yeah. VD, when you're saying that you couldn't listen to the last 10 minutes of that podcast, I think I didn't eat lunch that day till like 2 p.m. because I got to that point of the podcast right when I would normally eat at like noon, and I totally lost my appetite. And the best part was when Steve, like at the very end of the show, it said something like, the question is he willing to like put his whole head, or does he have a strong enough stomach or something to eat his own puke? And Kirk was just like, that's it. That's the question. We're going to end it there.
Yeah.
They just cut the podcast off right there.
I'm curious. I don't think that guy will eat. I don't think he'll do it. I don't think he'll do it. I think he may get as far as taking maybe a bite out of it. And I think that's how far again. Maybe that's a good over under. How many bites? And
Kirk won't even be there. It'll just be Steve.
I don't think we have time for my Steve is poisoning Kirk take. So I'll save that for a future show. So I've been informed that on this program, in the after show portion, which is the portion we are in right now, they talk about, what was it, Ziggy?
Minifan drama. So this week we had a continuation of Kirk going down the list of the OGs and punishing the OGs in ways that he wouldn't have before. And this time it was R.A. Minahan who caught some shrapnel and got the block from Kirk. I've been there, R.A. We meet every third Tuesday, and new guy brings the donuts. No munchkins, all right? Donuts, no fucking munchkins. It's a pandemic. It's irresponsible, and they're garbage. But my thing with RA was I definitely clipped the audio and tagged Kirk, and I'm hoping that helped get RA in trouble. But I'd be hypocritical if I didn't say that I was interested to hear him have a criticism of the show, because I think the biggest problem with the YouTube and the reason I find a lot of those shows boring is people will call me a contrarian, and I a contrarian. Why is it boring? Because you don't know if you're getting the truth from them, right? They're just saying negative stuff just to say it. But to me, the other side of that coin is someone who's just saying nothing but positive stuff, and I don't know if I'm getting the truth from them, and that gets boring to me. Like, that's why DEC was so fucking boring by the end. And then look what he did on his way out the door, guns a-blazing, like, guess what? I thought the show sucked for the past 3 months or whatever it was. And it's like, well, DEC, then
then thanks for doing a bunch of episodes and not sharing that opinion with us the whole time and withholding it. So that to me is why I find a lot of stuff boring. Like if you have these fan shows and if they ask each other, what did you think of? I want to know there's a chance I'm going to get some real opinion from them. So I actually didn't enjoy hearing RA and them on the OG show talk about that. But I even more so enjoyed seeing him get in trouble with Kirk over it.
Yeah, and he was not the only one to get blocked. Kirk went on a blocking spree. I don't know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, one of those days. And he said the next day, some of them were trolls or people that are habitual complainers. Some of them he was just kind of doing to mess with. So there's definitely been. I did see today some people getting blocked by the main show, and then there's some complaining about that, and then those people getting unblocked. So not sure who's behind that. I'm not blocked. Thankfully, I'm not a firebrand, so that's kind of my whole image is to play it safe. So I guess if you're going to complain, you may get blocked. It's just something that's going to happen.
Blocking would break you, Ziggy.
Yes, it would.
Yeah. Now,
Yes,
Mayo, as someone who has had some critical opinions in the past and has received some heat for it, I guess something I get annoyed with is when people take shots at the show and Kirk fires back. So I think RA did have a couple tweets throughout the week, and then he kind of echoed his sentiments on the OG show, and Kirk didn't go out of his way to make a big deal about it. But if you were plugged in, you could hear a couple times he kind of didn't mention him, and then Mayo may not have blocked him. But to me, it's the people I hate the most are not the suck pumps or the contrarians. It's the people that like complain about either one necessarily. So I didn't word that very well, but I've long said on this show that the contrarian and the suck pump are the same people. They're just the opposite side of the coin, and they just love shouting at each other about how could you never criticize the show, or how could you criticize the show? And it gets a little tiring watching that happen. But I do think I do welcome people to try to toe the line where, you know, you're speaking freely, but at the same time, like, yeah, if you're on the show's YouTube network, you should be overall supporting the show. I think there's a humorous way to take shots at the show, and there's just a cunty, annoying, whiny, bitchy way. And it can be hard to straddle that line. I'd say maybe at times you've crossed that line, whether intentionally or not. But at the end of the day, as long as you're someone who is contributing to the world, you're not you basically don't have an overinflated ego or anything, I think you should be allowed, and I think you are allowed to kind of have some criticisms of the show. Just be ready for a little bit of blowback.
Yeah, I think you guys straddle that line really well. And that's why, you know, it's no secret. I've told you guys this before. I think you've got the best show going on the YouTube by far. I mean, I don't even know who's close to this one. But yeah, because you guys, when I listen to you guys talk, and with Red, like, you're right. I get the sense that, you know, you are getting real opinions. Like even with you, VD, sometimes I don't know. Like I said, I don't know when it's shtick or if you really do support Steve and all he does, or if you've just staked out that territory and you're going to defend it. But it's entertaining, and you guys can be, you know, somewhat critical, but without being, you know, annoying like I've been in the past. Or perhaps have been this for the past 90 minutes too.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agree with everything you just said.
But you're not boring. That's been my biggest complaint with a lot of the YouTube content is I just find it boring.
Sometimes Red's questions get a little boring. He gets a little long-winded. I tune those out. But yeah, for the most part, we try to have fun.
But as far as Kirk fighting back, I do find sometimes he'll tell a guy like me to go away, or a guy like Menners. And it's like love or hate Menners. Menners is, to me, entertaining. Like I want a guy like that around. Yeah, we disagree on Menners. He was
entertaining to VD until he got.
He's not really that entertaining. I mean, his episode of Nickel's of Free Advice has 50% less views than the next episode. He does that. He has trouble with that contrarian shtick and he also is kind of like a little off-brand version of an off-brand version of an off-brand version of Kirk, where he tries to do that little shtick. But I see your point. I mean, overall, would I like Menners to be around on the YouTube? Yes. I did enjoy your episode of your show with you and Menners, where you basically spent an hour jacking each other off about your Kirk interviews, and then another hour basically giving advice for people how to do YouTube shows, and then several weeks later, you had both quit your shows. So some real expert advice from some guys who know how to be consistent.
I think I quit a week later.
Yeah. When are we getting your show back, by the way? Is it ever coming back? Can I dream? Can you at least say there's a 1% chance? You know?
I do have an idea for an episode about because you see fans. I've done it. We've seen Menners do it where people delete their account, and you'll go to the account. It's like, this account doesn't exist anymore. And then all of a sudden they're back. And I don't know if you ever tried to do it, but Twitter gives you a 30-day window to come back and say, no, I don't want to do it. Give me the account back. So I did come up with a method for deleting your account in such a way that you completely eliminate the ability to go back in that 30-day window. And it helps.
That's your nickels.
Yeah. You need a like in my case, my wife helped. You need an accomplice. You need a partner. You need somebody that you can trust.
An accountability buddy.
Can you walk us through that insane tweet you had about the password system you had set up with your wife, with your other Twitter account?
Yeah, that all ties into it. So
yeah,
I wanted to cut back on my Twitter use because it was getting, and I mean, it's totally my fault. Like I wasn't having as much fun fighting with everybody. And then I also have like an addictive personality, and I was just starting to get to the point where it's like, I think I'm spending way too much time on my phone so whatever, I wanted to cut back. So, I don't have the willpower to just do it on my own. So I went to a random password generator that just gives you a password that's gibberish, random characters. And you can change your Twitter password to that randomly generated one. And you may need to add, like random digits at the end of it or things to make it match the Twitter password criteria. So you do that, you change that password, and then you email the password to your partner, and then you delete the email. You make sure you go to your sent folder and delete it in there, and then empty the trash to get rid of it. And then if you pasted it into a Word doc or anything, don't save the Word doc. So then there's one person in your life who has your Twitter password, who you set up a system in which they, it's like, well, all right, every Friday from 7 to 8, here's your Twitter password. You can get in there. But the other thing is you can then create a burner account that they don't know about. And I don't really have a solution for that.
BD, can we make sure we clip that sound, send it to Steve, so when advertisers say, yeah, tell me a little bit about your fan base, we can just say, this is the psychosis that is going on in the Miniverse.
Yeah. And then if you want to delete your account, you just do all that without sending that password to your partner. And then you delete the Word doc. You delete the Word doc. You have no trace of it anywhere, and you can't get back in there. Oh no, you have to set up a dummy account. You have to, because you could do the whole I forgot my password thing. So you need to set up a dummy email, make it the password, the email that they would use to send you the password reset, and then do that whole password random thing and deleting it with that dummy email too. So you're locked out of there forever. I forgot about that stuff.
Your wife is the nickel rubber of the week for saving you
of my life. Yes.
That is the beautiful mind of Andy Mayo. That is very critical of the minutia of Steve trying to run a lottery. That's what's going on in his daily processes. Another thing I've been wanting to criticize you for quite some time, Mayo, is in your fantastic interview you had with Kirk, the #1 interview.
It was. Thank you.
You let Kirk say that he has been intimidated interviewing several people, and you didn't ask him who. And that just upsets me. You just let him go right through that without asking who intimidated him. Because to this day, I still wonder what the answer to that question is. So
really, I thought I did ask him.
I don't think so.
No, you know what? There was one. He said there was parts of EEI he missed, and I followed up on that. I remember there was one follow up I had that I was like, that was a good follow up. But you're right. I share your pain on that. That would have been a good follow up.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Kirk listens to your show, so fucking God help him if he made it this far into it. But if he did, maybe he'll DM you.
So before we wrap up,
you won't tell me.
Mayo, I do have a couple questions. Just kind of curious if you have any regrets over your life on the KMS universe. So my first question: do you have any regrets about your comments regarding the 5K?
No. it's not, none of it's serious enough to have like real regrets about it, but I guess I could have tried to be more fun about it. But again, oh no, you know what I do regret is the way that they think they have said that they seem to think I was implying that they were knowingly like ripping fans off and stealing. And like I said before, it's not about that. It's just more about process. So it's more of me saying that I think they fucked up or kind of built the plane in the air in a few ways and then ended up, promoting some things that they didn't deliver on.
So shame on me. I should have prefaced, please try to keep your answers brief.
Oh, well, then don't ask me.
The second question. I can't. Second question. Do you regret deleting?
No, my answer is no.
Do you regret deleting your old Twitter account, knowing now you have 73 followers and are totally inconsequential in the Miniverse?
Sometimes, like today, I tweeted at Kirk to tell him, because he was talking about how his dad's cereal habits, and I told Kirk that my dad eats cereal with orange juice.
I saw it.
And I like honey nut. Not just like plain Cheerios, almost you could see it working with orange juice, but he'll do like honey nut Cheerios and orange juice, which I think is weird. And I know like nobody's seeing that. But
next question. Do you regret blocking Kirk from your new account so that he no longer follows you?
No, I didn't block him from the new account. Or maybe I unblocked him. He's not blocked.
Yeah, but he doesn't follow you because you blocked him from that account.
I don't think he would follow me anyway.
He was following you.
Yeah, as part of his ironic, I love these guys.
Yeah, but Red survived through that.
Yeah, he made the cut.
Did he?
When you sign up to the Ziggy VD rehabilitation program, quite a lot of things can happen for you. That's all I'll say.
I'm not here for you guys to rehab me. I'm here to reverse Red's rehab. Because I heard Kirk say that he likes your show, and I heard him. It sounds like he's starting to like Red, and I was sitting at home and I was like, I cannot fucking have this. So I DM'd Red and said, can I come on sometime?
2 more real quick. Do you regret your last call on the show where you suggested that Fred Toucher should make weekly appearances with Kirk?
I don't know if I said he should make weekly appearances. I think I said he'd be a good third voice occasionally. Obviously, he can't do weekly appearances. You guys have pointed out to me that I'll often present a concept and then present specifics about it, and it's the specifics that kill me. So in that case, I think I was proven right. My concept was more voices on the show. And then a week or two later, Kirk's talking about, we're going to be trying to get more guests and things like that. So I think I was right on that. Fred Toucher, I will stand by. If you don't think that a conversation between Kirk and Fred, given their shared professional history and how morning radio can make you crazy, and then the similar challenges they've had in their personal lives, if you don't think a conversation between the two of them, wherever it occurs, would be interesting, you're a dummy, and I don't want anything to do with you.
I'll vouch for that.
It'd be awesome. I would love to hear the two. I've always wanted to hear the two of them together.
It's as interesting as the Epstein interview, sure.
What wouldn't be?
Last question. Do you regret tweeting that John from Scranton should take Mike's chair?
He's also said it on his show, Nickels Worth of Free Advice, that John was the only person.
I mean, that's got to be a regret.
Did I say that?
Yes, you did. And not only did you say that, I DM'd you because I thought you were trolling. So I made sure you weren't trolling, and you gave me 5 bullet point reasons for why you said that.
Well, what were my reasons?
It was like he'd be good behind the scenes. He can keep up with Kirk.
He knows
he's got a Barstool connection.
Well, yeah.
It was. I like John, but on the show, I mean, you got to regret that one.
I will say the thought, this is such a douchey term. The thought exercise that I was conducting there, I believe I prefaced it as, hey, Minifans, here's a scenario. You have to name a Minifan to take Mike's seat. I'm not saying you want it to happen. I'm not saying you're saying Kirk should make this happen, but you have to pick one. Who would you pick if you had to pick one?
Yeah,
and
I
think I could stand by John from Scranton.
I'd be curious as to why.
Who would you pick? Who would you pick? I want to know who you two would pick.
Steve from Providence. I've already said it.
Oh, Jesus Christ. No. Yep. And then
probably myself,
funny,
and then Steve from Providence.
I should have picked myself because
my 1A would be me. 1B would probably actually be you, Mayo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't agree with the order, but I appreciate it. Ziggy, who would you pick?
I just said it.
Who? I don't listen to
Steve from Providence.
Oh God, yeah, you did just say that.
Which I said a long time ago. Because you can create content on his own. Although his calls have been very unfunny lately. I don't know what's going on, but
Steve from Providence is funny, but not
can
5
hang.
days, not 5 days a week, not 5
Steve
days a
can-
week.
well, no
None
one-
of those
yeah.
guys. Tim and
See-
Canton, Kevin from Bristol, Steve from none of them would be good 5 days a week. And that's not even a knock on them. That's just reality.
Yeah, that wasn't the question. But okay. Anyways, anything else before we wrap it up? This is 2 hours too long for a Mayo show that will probably get us kicked off the YouTube.
I don't think so. We have you. This has been
On,
No,
on Kirk's birthday, no
great.
less.
It's been great.
Let me look. I'm looking at my notes. Adam Minahan is everyone's friend. Steve is poisoning Kirk. Chipotle theft.
Yeah, that was theft.
That was
That's
theft.
That
theft.
was
I
theft.
can't believe
That
he
was theft. He went
was
back
he
a different
kidding?
time, right? Yeah.
Was he kidding, or does he really? Is he really not sure if that's a
Not only is
morally
it not only is it
upstanding thing to
theft,
do?
it's a potential super spreader event.
Yeah.
I think it's theft in the sense of the law, but as far as morally goes, I think soda fountains are free game. Like, have you never asked for a water cup and filled it with soda? Isn't that essentially the same
Yeah,
thing?
I have, but that's theft.
I have not.
Theft. I don't know.
It's a theft of service.
I'm
goods and
I'm an
goods.
honest guy. Like if the teller fucks up the change, they give me a 20 when they should have given me a 10. I tell them. I don't even think about it. I'm just instinctively honest, and
I tip the teller.
I'm just better than you, I guess. I'm a better.
No, you're
person.
not, because I actually tip the teller. So I tell them, and then I give them that money back to keep for themselves. So I'm actually.
Do you really?
Yeah.
What do you tip on a haircut?
I don't get haircuts very often. I don't know if you've ever seen me, but I think a better example would be if I have delivery food and it's $12, I'm giving a 20 every time.
Uh-huh.
Easy.
And letting them keep 8.
Yeah, I'm not a big change guy. I don't like change.
I don't either.
It's maybe my one weird like Kirk OCD thing is I don't like change. I don't want change. Keep everything even.
I'll keep change if it's bills. Coins I throw in the garbage. I literally throw. I don't give a fuck.
Oh,
I
yeah.
throw it away.
Especially
I'm not going to find a vase to fill with my loose change. I throw it out.
A mason jar. That's what we do.
Maybe you could start a college fund for your daughter. I don't know.
No,
how
they'll go to state school and be something. So I don't know. They'll be fine.
All right. Any last words before we wrap this up? Mayo, thank you for coming on and filling in for Red. I hate hosting this show, so been wanting to get you on here for a while. And the week before a live event sounds like the perfect time to have Mayo on. What could go wrong?
I don't think anything went wrong.
No, I think you were great. Very well behaved.
Yeah, you
I
did.
told you my goal is for Kirk to begrudgingly say that
No.
Mayo was funny and charming.
That
would be probably be a good in the third seat, maybe quarterly.
You've made your demands. I think you said $100,000 a year and a 1-year contract, and you would do it. So offers on the table from your end, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you said. I know everything you said. man.
You really do. Have you? VD is the number one Mayo guy.
I'm probably the biggest nickel rubber there is.
Careful.
Yeah.
He was the number one Menners guy until like 2 weeks ago. So
Never
be
was.
careful.
Never
Well,
was.
Sorry, I stretched your 70-minute show into
no, this was good.
3
This
hours.
was fun. Appreciate you coming on. The obvious joke, but I'm going to make it. This October 31st, 2020 is the day the KMS rundown jumped the shark. No pun intended, but intended. I don't know what I am doing wearing this GIMP mask, but here we are.
I think the viewers are going to demand that every week from now on. So you might have signed yourself up or something.
We'll put out a poll or something.
Ziggy,
Yeah.
you say you're not a movie guy, but you've made 2 Pulp Fiction references tonight. You
No,
called
this-
it Crown Royale, and they
That-
say Royale with cheese. And
That
then
was
you just
actually
referred
that was
to your
actually
GIMP
not a
mask.
reference. In the GIMP thing, I know what a GIMP looks like. So
Have you
Don't-
seen
don't
Pulp
ask
Fiction?
I have, yeah.
Is it overrated?
It wasn't very memorable to me, so sure.
I think it's overrated.
I
You guys
like-
realize I'm not letting you. You're just gonna have to just
All
cut
right,
this off.
my
or
final
I'm
word-
not gonna stop.
My final word. Good luck to Frank Luntz on Tuesday. Big night for my good buddy there. And yeah, that's it.
Peace.
Happy birthday, Kirk.